So, you're trying to land a job in the Bitcoin space, right? And you know the drill, polishing that CV, firing off dozens of applications, and then you wait. It can be super frustrating. But what if I told you that whole approach is kind of backward? Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical shift in strategy, one that moves you away from chasing jobs and toward a new model where opportunities actually find you. Okay, let's dive in. Yeah, because this picture look familiar? Sending your resume out into the void, it really does feel like you're jumping through one hoop after another. It's just this exhausting process, and it's all rooted in an old way of thinking. This is such a common pain point for so many talented people who are trying to break in or just level up in the industry. You know, that feeling really comes down to a clash between two totally different mindsets. On one hand, you've got the fiat mindset. It's like printing resumes. You're just endlessly chasing jobs with a static CV. But on the other hand, there's the Bitcoiner mindset. This is where you're proactive, you build a real reputation, and you get found because you have verifiable proof of work. This shift is everything, and it's what we're going to unpack today. Okay, so how do we actually make that shift? Well, it all starts with a totally new way of thinking inspired by the author Austin Kleon. The core idea is to stop being a hunter and instead become like a beacon, something that opportunities just can't help but notice. And this, right here, is the big idea, the core revelation. Just having skills on a resume isn't enough anymore. In a world that is so full of noise, especially in a dynamic space like Bitcoin, your most important attribute is discoverability. You have to be findable. This one little shift in perspective, it changes the entire game. You know, this new mindset, it just completely dismantles that whole lone genius myth. Real innovation, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in what the musician Brian Eno called a scenius, a collective scene. And honestly, that's the exact ethos of Bitcoin, isn't it? It's a collaborative space where great ideas flourish. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to show up and contribute to the scene. And this leads to a pretty liberating thought. In a field that moves as fast as Bitcoin, we're all kind of amateurs. And you gotta embrace it. Amateurs are the ones who are willing to learn, to experiment, to share their journey openly without being terrified of being wrong. That's a massive strength, not a weakness at all. This picture just captures it perfectly. We're all taught to hide the messy process and only show off the perfect, polished final product. But the truth is, people are curious, especially in the Bitcoin space. They want to see the journey, the code that didn't work, the aha moments. The thing is, your process is often way more interesting than your polished final product. So let's break this down a little, because there's a really powerful distinction here. Artwork, one word, is the finished piece. The final app, the perfect article. But artwork, two words, that's the entire process. It's the notes, the sketches, the failed attempts, the learning. That's where the real value is. That's what you need to share, your artwork. Look, sharing your artwork, it's vulnerable. No doubt about it. But as the researcher Brené Brown has shown us, it's only when we allow ourselves to be truly seen that genuine connection can even happen. And ultimately, it's those connections that lead to all the unexpected opportunity. Okay, so all of this brings us to the most important part, building your single most important asset in this space, your public, verifiable proof of work. This is where all that theory becomes real action. I mean, think about it. Your CV, it's static. It's a backward-looking document, just a snapshot in time. But a body of work that you share online, your code contributions, your articles, your projects, that's a living, breathing portfolio. It shows what you can do right now, and it's just infinitely more powerful. All right, so you're probably asking, how do I actually start building this thing? Well, it really boils down to 3 simple daily habits. First, become a documentarian of your own journey. Second, share one small piece of that journey every single day. And third, and this is key, as soon as you learn something new, turn around and teach it to somebody else. So what does this actually look like in the Bitcoin world? What's some concrete stuff you can do?
Well, your proof of work can take so many forms. If you're a developer, maybe you contribute code to open source projects. If you're a communicator, you create content or transcribe talks. For community builders, it's organizing meetups. You could even help train a Bitcoin AI or just build your own small app. Basically, anything you do that adds public value becomes a verifiable part of your reputation. It's that simple.
But here's a super important point. Just broadcasting your work out there, that's not enough. That's only half the equation. You also have to connect with the community in a real, authentic way. You want to be a valued member of the scene and not, human spam.
And here's the big difference, right? Human spam is all about me, me, me. They only talk, they never listen, and they're obsessed with vanity metrics like follower counts. But an authentic connector, they're a fan first. They listen, they engage thoughtfully, and they focus on hearts, not eyeballs, which means they care about meaningful connections, not just mass exposure.
And really, that's the bottom line. Just forget all the growth hacks and stop trying to game the algorithms. Instead, invest that energy into having real conversations with the people you actually admire and want to talk to. A handful of quality connections is always going to be more valuable than thousands of shallow ones.
Okay, here's a pro tip, and this one might surprise you a bit. Don't ignore LinkedIn. Why? Because recruiters in the Bitcoin space, well, they still use it heavily. So make yourself findable there. Sprinkle the word Bitcoin all over your profile. Connect directly with the recruiters. Engage with content from Bitcoiners and companies you look up to. Just think of it as another signal you're putting out there for them to catch. Honestly, it's a massively underutilized tool in our space.
So, last big idea here, and it's a crucial one. None of this is a quick fix. Building a reputation, a body of work, and a network, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience. It takes a mindset that should be really familiar to us as Bitcoiners, low time preference. You've got to apply that exact same long-term thinking to your career. Every piece of work you share, every connection you make, it's literally like stacking sats for your future. You're building career capital. And by consistently showing up and showing your work, you become the signal in a sea of noise. Look, there are going to be tough times. But this quote from the comedian Joan Rivers is just such a powerful reminder about perseverance. This whole professional journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You stick around, you hold on, you just keep building, because that persistence is what separates the people who succeed from those who fade away. And hey, sticking around doesn't mean you can't take breaks. You absolutely should. Burnout is real. The key is to take the time you need to recharge, but then to begin again from where you left off, not start over from scratch. You gotta preserve that momentum. So, I really want to leave you with this one final thought. What if you just completely flip the script? Instead of anxiously looking around asking, where's my next job, you focused all your energy on building and sharing and connecting so that companies and recruiters start asking themselves, wow, this person is doing amazing work. How do we find them? Okay, so if you're fired up and ready to put all this into practice, here are your next steps. You can join the Bitvocation POW Lab to get tools and guidance for your Bitcoin career. For all the latest job listings, subscribe to the Bitvocation feed on Telegram. And definitely download the free guide, How to Find Your First Job in Bitcoin from bitvocation.com. Go on, start building that proof of work today.